How's it going, everyone? At this point, I feel like this Randy Pitchford tweet has been seen by just about everyone, but I thought I would give a little bit of input on it on this channel. On top of that, his responses, I do think, let's just get started with the initial tweet. This tweet was one of the worst things a CEO, a promoter of his video game could ever say. This is just appallingly bad, and the fact that Pitchford, I would imagine of sound mind, wrote out this tweet and sent it out just incredibly tone deaf, incredibly ridiculous, and he must have known that he would have gotten clowned on it for it. However, this tweet got sent out a week ago. It really just made the rounds over the last few days. I guess people just hadn't noticed it. I certainly hadn't noticed it until it was being brought up. I don't believe I follow Randy Pitchford on Twitter. I don't. So, I wouldn't have seen it, but then a lot of news outlets started posting about it, and yes, it is one of the worst tweets I think I've ever seen in terms of somebody talking about their video game. I mean, there's been some crazy tweets out there, but just objectively speaking about promoting a video game and justifying a potential $80 price point, horrendous. Somebody tweeted at Randy saying, Randy, this game better not be $80. Don't take that risk. A lot of gamers aren't going to pay $80 and feed this notion of constant increase of the price tag. You're the CEO. You have some say with the price when it comes to your publisher. Randy Pitchford responded saying, hey, not my call. If you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. Oh boy. That is an awful tweet, especially in the current climate of the world. Not only because this idea of, oh, because X, I did X back in the day, you should be able to do Y, and also above all, gating the term if you're a real fan. So, what does that even mean? Do we have a quantifiable metric of what defines a real fan? Is that metric that Pitchford is insinuating? Oh, if you're a real fan, you'll just spend money. Well, what does that amount of money increase to define my real fandom? Brother, there's a lot of fans of Borderlands. If you want to differentiate between the regular fans and the real fans by how much money they're willing to spend on a game, what are we doing at that point? In fact, there are a lot of fans of Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3 that enjoyed the game, but guess what? I guess they're not a real fan because they didn't buy the game day one at $60 and they waited for the game to be discounted, because I know a lot of people that their first exposure to Borderlands 2 was via the Handsome Collection being on sale for $9.99. Does that make them not a real fan of Borderlands? Does that make them not as big of a fan as the person that bought Borderlands 2 on launch day at $60? I don't know. And the reality is, we don't even know if this game is gonna be $80. Just responding to this tweet being hey, I don't know what the price point is gonna be, but at the end of the day, it's not my call. That would have sufficed. People would have ran with that and got upset. The fact that you decided to gate the meaning of real fan, and you almost have this perception that if you're not spending top dollar, which mind you, Borderlands 4, even if it is $70, you know there's gonna be DLCs, you know there's gonna be deluxe editions, there potentially will be fake early access, all of that stuff baked into it. And you want to define your real fandom by $80 price points or how much you're willing to spend money on the game, also given that the climate of the world today. And mind you, I've been saying this a lot more recently when talking about the $80 price tag. It is just not people being financially restricted to spend $80 on a game. There are absolutely people that are financially restricted, and no shame in that. No shame in not wanting to spend $80 on a video game when the cost of rent is crazy. I see the price points of eggs. Thankfully, my local grocery store has knocked down the prices of eggs recently a little bit. I was spending north of $6 on a dozen for a while. Well, I wasn't spending north of $6. They were asking north of $6 for eggs for a while, and I literally eliminated eggs out of my diet. But I see these price points. I mean, I'm bugged out when the price points of my damn tortillas went up by 50 cents at my local grocery store as well. Price points on a lot of things are just going up. The price point of cars, actual necessities for day-to-day living, is going up. and then video games going up in price, and then also mitigating video games going up in price and putting the onus on a fan on whether or not they are a real fan and making it happen. It's just like, come on, there is this level of financial restriction, but it also extends beyond that. So many people in my comments section and so many people that I've talked to, they are financially free. They can spend $80 on a video game, but at some point, they do have to have some sort of principles. Yeah, they can spend $70 on a game. They can spend $80 on a game. Hell, a lot of my buddies, they are deep into their careers. They make well into the six figures. They can spend a lot of money on video games. However, when they look at a game and they see a $70, $80 price point, and I know a lot of people, and they've left comments, they're well established into their careers, they make deep into the six figures, etc., etc., they can easily spend $70 to $80, but there's this level of principle that you have to have, and honestly, for those people that are also like, bro, this is too expensive and we're not buying the game, they're doing a solid by not buying the game for those people that are dealing with the financial restrictions, because if enough people don't buy the games at 70 to 80 bucks, then ultimately they'll adjust their price points. And it's also the market. When you look at the market of video games and what's available, everybody at this point realizes that they have an insane backlog. They have other opportunities to play great video games at great prices. Pretty much everybody realizes this, and if you're gonna be charging a premium for a game, yes, there's gonna be people that spend $70 to $80 on a Borderlands 4, absolutely. However, are there enough people that are gonna spend $70 to $80 on a Borderlands 4 to justify the apparent doubling in the cost of development of the game, which would make it approach $300 million if this $140 million number that Borderlands 3 and the DLC, mind you, costed, and Borderlands 4 is apparently double that? You're gonna need a lot of people to be spending 70 to 80 bucks on that, and you could say, hey, the games are now cost more to develop. However, that's not the consumer's issue. That's not our issue. We didn't ask for the games to explode in budget. In fact, I would argue that the explosion of the budget of video games and the lengthening of development cycles have actively made these games worse. Most people would agree that Assassin's Creed 2 is better than Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think most people would agree on that. Obviously, they are different times. These are different games. I get that, but I look at Naughty Dog back in the day, BioWare back in the day, Ubisoft back in the day, in the late 2000s and early 2010s. All of those studios, which are some of the most known studios and publishers in the world, I would argue made better games back then. Borderlands 2 I thought was better than Borderlands 3. I can go on and on. The game price points are going up. The budgets are going up. Are the games getting better? That's a question that we really have to ask. Yeah, they keep throwing around, oh, these budgets are going up. I like Last of Us 1 better than Last of Us 2. I liked Uncharted 2 better than Last of Us 2. I liked a lot of games. I liked Mass Effect 2 better than Dragon Age Veilguard. I like Dragon Age 2 better than Dragon Age Veilguard. You can up these budgets all you want. Fundamentally, are the games better? Maybe sometimes they are. All the times are they? Yeah, Red Dead 2 is incredible, but does that apply to every game? No, not necessarily. So we can keep going back to these games have gotten more expensive to develop, but have the games gotten better? Well, that's going to differ in opinion from person to person, but I would argue in a lot of cases they haven't. And Borderlands, in fact, pre-sequel, Tiny Tina Wonderlands, I would say, are far lesser in quality than Borderlands 2, but that's a one man's opinion, and not everybody is going to follow in line with that opinion. I'll say Pitchford in his follow-up statement in, I don't know what the event was, and he talked about the price point in reference to the budget going up, etc., etc. You know, I think he articulated himself far better than this tweet. This tweet is just an abomination, and just using the terminology, if you're a real fan, you'll make it happen, is just horrendous. And he got ratioed by so many accounts in responses, and you just don't want to see stuff like this. Ultimately, is it going to affect Borderlands 4 in terms of how that game is going to sell? Probably not, and Borderlands 2 is one of the most successful games of all time. Do I think Borderlands as an IP is as hot as it once was? I really don't think so. I think people might be a little bit surprised on how this game does. I still see it doing fairly well, but as an IP, I don't sense that Borderlands has this momentum that it once had. Now, if Borderlands 4 comes out and it's this amazing game, sure, people will gravitate to it and it'll do fairly well. It'll probably do fairly well regardless because the IP is so established. established. Now, will it do well enough to justify that $300 million cost if it's around that ballpark? I don't know, and part of me is thinking it isn't. And because while I have excitement and some interest in Borderlands 4, is it this IP that I feel like absolutely is this juggernaut in 2025? I don't know if it is to the extent that they are expecting it to be, and I might be wrong about that. I've been wrong about a lot of things, but certainly promoting a game in this way is not the right way to go, and ultimately we're still 4 months away from the release of the game. A lot of things can change, and they can promote the game better, but certainly this isn't a good one to go with. And whether or not it is $80, we still don't know. Borderlands 4 being $80, though, would make it the first non-Nintendo game to be $80. I believe Microsoft won't have a game at $80 until, you know, the October, November, December period. Borderlands 4 being $80 and being the first one outside of Nintendo, which they're doing it on a brand new console. Everybody buying a Switch 2 isn't gonna give a damn spending $80 on Mario Kart. In fact, they're probably getting the bundle anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But Borderlands 4, if it's $80, if that Steam price is $79.99, if that PSN price is $79.99, and you know they're gonna have the deluxe editions, the ultimate editions, hey, bake in that fake early access for $110 while you're at it as well. And I think this price point is something people are being more cognizant about, especially when you see these $50 games doing incredibly well, like the Expedition 33s, like the Oblivion remasters, and again, part of it is the financial limitations that people have. I also think a lot of it is just out of principle. I've talked to so many people that they have the financial freedom to spend whatever amount of money. They can buy all of these $100 deluxe editions. They just don't want to because from a principle standpoint, and they see all of the other options available, why would you spend this kind of money on any video game? And sure, everybody is going to have those few video games that they love as IPs and they're gonna spend, but it comes down to, are there enough people that are that big of a fan of that IP or of that franchise, of that development studio, that they're gonna immediately spend $80, $90, $100, even $70? Again, we saw it with Dark Ages. We saw it with Dark Ages and how that game is doing, and I get that people are bringing up, hey, Dark Ages on Steam, the requirements are gonna gate people out. Guys, it is doing 1/3 the number of Doom Eternal, and even with it being on Game Pass, even with the requirements being high, I think that 1/3 number is quite jarring, but, you know, that's one instance of a game that's also available on Game Pass. There have been so many games at a $70 price point that have done well. $80, however, I do think we're getting to that point of a lot of people, again, from the standpoint of financially being gated out, but also just from a principle standpoint of being like, bro, there's all these games that go on sale all the time. They're either not going to buy it, or if they do buy it, they'll get it way down the line when it is on sale, because there's so much other stuff to play. But ultimately, if a game is priced at $80, they want as many people buying it at $80. And there's a point where you have to wonder, hey, would it be better to just price a game at $50 and then selling as well as the Expeditions of the world do than $80? And obviously, Borderlands 4 is going to have far bigger expectations than an Expedition 33. It'll be interesting to cover, you know, the numbers that the game does bring, whether or not it is $80. I think just for assessing where Borderlands is at as an IP, it's going to be pretty interesting to assess it from that level. And Borderlands 3 did do really well. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, yes, a spin-off, that game did not do very well relative to expectations, so it'll be interesting to see where Borderlands is still at. I think it's going to do well relative to other Borderlands games, but at the same time, you're talking about a game that has exploded in budget as well. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, thank you for watching. Sound off with your thoughts down below, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.